Hey, I can't tell you how much it means that you're here watching this. If you choose to stick around and hit subscribe, that gratitude will only grow. But enough of that, let's get into it. They say betrayal doesn't always come shouting. Sometimes it whispers. It hides in subtle gestures. A hand that lingers too long, a glance that lingers even longer, a laugh stretched just a fraction past natural. At the company's annual gala in the heart of downtown Denver, I learned firsthand how true that is. The ballroom glittered like a shrine to ambition. Crystal chandeliers dripped from the ceiling, walls gleamed with mirrored panels, and gilded accents caught the light with every movement of the crowd. Servers drifted between clusters of executives, trays balanced with flutes of champagne and hors d'oeuvres so delicate they looked sculpted rather than cooked. But none of that mattered to me. My eyes were locked on Naomi, my wife. She stood beneath soft amber uplighting, every detail of her presence sharpened by it. The effortless grace in her posture, the rich green of her satin dress catching every glint, her laughter ringing above the low hum of the jazz quartet tucked in the corner. And then I saw him, Derek, her co-worker, the loud one, always taking up too much air in every meeting, thriving off attention he never seemed to earn. He leaned toward her, closer than the bounds of politeness allowed, and said something low in her ear. She laughed, really laughed, and rested her hand square on his chest. Not his shoulder, not his arm, his chest. That single detail burned through me. My fingers tightened around the glass I was holding until the condensation smeared across my palm. I turned toward the bar, every step deliberate, as though controlling my pace could contain the storm building in my chest. But I didn't make it that far. Derek intercepted me, bourbon dangling casually from his hand, grin already in place like a weapon. "Jason?" he said, voice smooth and smug as if we'd been friends for years. I didn't answer. Just nodded, jaw locked. He stepped closer, the sharp bite of his cologne cutting through the room. "Here's some advice," he said quietly, almost conversational. "Stay in your lane." I blinked at him slowly. "Sorry?" His smile widened, cruel and deliberate. "Naomi's got ambition. You seem comfortable. The kind of guy who never asks why the nest is warm, just enjoys that it is." A cheap shot, and he knew it. Rage twisted with shame in my gut, but I didn't give him the satisfaction of reacting. I met his stare for a long moment, then said flatly, "Thanks for the tip," and I walked away. Not because I didn't have words, but because I wanted better ones, sharper ones. Derek had made his opening move, but I wasn't about to play his game. The party carried on, glasses clinking, heels skimming marble floors, voices rising in polite laughter. But for me, everything had gone still. Naomi hadn't admitted anything. No lipstick on collars, no suspicious texts. Her betrayal was quieter, buried in the small details. How her laughter reached past me. How her hand found another man's chest. What do you do when the person you love turns you into the punchline? You don't beg, you don't collapse, you prepare, silently, thoroughly. I left before dessert. My tie loosened just enough to let my anger breathe. Outside, the Denver night cut cold against my skin. I crossed the lot to my car, silence folding over me like armor. No Naomi, no Derek, just the steady thrum of my own pulse. I sat behind the wheel for a long time, staring into the rearview mirror. I looked the same, but something inside me had shifted in a way that couldn't be undone. I wouldn't scream, wouldn't crumble. I'd find the truth on my terms, and when I did, I'd let them both choke on it. Home had always been sanctuary. That night, it felt like evidence. By the time I pulled into the garage, midnight had bled into morning. The porch light burned steadily, pretending everything was normal. But nothing was. I stayed in the car, engine ticking into silence, hand moving on instinct. Beneath the passenger seat, cold plastic. The recorder. I'd planted it weeks ago, back when Naomi's late nights at the office started stacking up, when her glances at her phone stretched too long, when she started calling me babe again, but only around other people. I never wanted to be the kind of man who spied on his wife. But you don't pack a parachute if you're sure the plane won't crash. I plugged in the earbuds. Hit play. A soft click. Static. Then Naomi's voice. Steady, deliberate, almost too measured to be casual. "Jason's safe." A pause. Car sounds in the background. She must have been parked somewhere. Probably one of those Thursdays she claimed she was catching up on emails. "He's steady," she went on. "The kind of guy you choose when the first one doesn't work out. Predictable, dependable. He never makes me wonder." My jaw tightened. Derek's voice followed. Low, amused. "Yeah, he seems like the guy who folds his laundry like a soldier and calls it a night after 2 drinks. Naomi laughed, a laugh I hadn't heard in months. "I don't hate him," she murmured. I don't think he really sees me anymore. Not the part of me that still wants more. Jason's already where he wants to be." Silence, then faint, almost whispered, "You make me feel like I'm still rising." The words cut clean through me. I wasn't a partner to her anymore. I was a fallback. I pulled out the earbuds carefully, placed them back in their case. No smashing, no shouting. That would have given her an excuse, something to cling to. This wasn't rage anymore. This was clarity, ice cold and exact. I stepped out of the car, locked it behind me. Inside, the house was silent. Naomi was either asleep or pretending. I walked through the kitchen. Her coffee mug was rinsed and drying by the sink beside a single wine glass. 1 glass, not 2. In my study, I slid the recorder into a drawer, where old receipts and a tarnished paperweight used to share space with anniversary cards. That drawer didn't hold memories anymore. It held evidence. I sat in the quiet and let her words sink into me. A fallback. That's what I was. The thing about people obsessed with growth, they rarely notice the roots they're rotting. The storm inside me wasn't frantic. It was steady, focused. She thought silence meant weakness. She forgot. Fallback plans are still part of the blueprint, and some blueprints are built to withstand fire. I didn't sleep, not because I couldn't, because I was ready. By dawn, I was showered, dressed, mechanical in my movements. Naomi didn't stir when I left. Maybe she was exhausted from all that climbing. By 8, I was walking into Pascal and Company, an upscale cafe tucked into a narrow downtown street. Exposed brick walls, imported espresso machines, soft jazz humming from invisible speakers. Overpriced, pretentious, perfect. Alan was already waiting. He stood as I approached, a college friend I hadn't seen in nearly 2 years, but who answered my late-night call without question. Alan Grayson, corporate attorney, sharp, steady. The kind of man who could turn chaos into a strategy. We shook hands. No small talk, just a single nod. The kind men give when words would only get in the way. 2. "You look like hell," Alan said with a faint smirk. "And you still look like someone who reads legal briefs for fun," I replied, sliding into the booth across from him. He leaned forward, voice low, gaze sharp. "You said this was delicate." "It is," I admitted after a pause. "It's about Naomi." Recognition flickered in his expression. He sipped his coffee and muttered, "Always thought she was perfect on paper. Always figured I'd get this call." I set a flash drive on the table and nudged it toward him. "Audio from her car. No duplicates. This isn't blackmail, and I'm not after revenge. I just need to know what comes next." Alan didn't take it immediately. He studied me, measured, professional, but not unfeeling. "She's cheating," he said finally. "Sounds like she's already gone. She just hasn't left yet." I nodded toward the drive. "I want this handled quietly. No spectacle, no courtroom drama, just the truth. Seen, but not shouted." Alan gave a slow nod. "Low profile, high credibility." "Exactly." He took another sip. "Here's what I'd do. Compile hard evidence. Not a single incident. Patterns, timestamps, context. Then submit it anonymously to her firm's ethics board." "And me?" I asked. "Where does that leave me?" His eyes met mine. Above the mess. The silence that followed was heavy but not hostile. He slid me a napkin scribbled with names. Contacts, investigators, trusted people. I'm not trying to destroy her, I said quietly. No, Alan replied. You're trying to remember yourself. We sat another 15 minutes, not scheming, just breathing. When I left, I felt lighter. Not because anything was fixed, but because I'd stopped waiting for rescue. When you're after the truth, you don't kick doors down. You ask quiet questions in quiet rooms, and you listen longer than you talk. 2 days later, I was in a downtown cafe across from Emily. Bright but unpretentious. Pale wood tables, Edison bulbs, the kind of spot where people meet for first dates or answer emails over lattes. I wasn't there for coffee. Emily was a junior analyst at Naomi's firm, late 20s, observant, overlooked, the kind of person who notices everything because no one notices her. I asked Naomi about her department the other day, I said lightly, stirring my tea with a laugh. Got a speech that sounded good but said nothing. Thought maybe you could translate. Emily smiled knowingly. That's about right. She's great at talking in circles. A faint blush crept in, like she'd said more than she meant to. I offered a subtle nod of encouragement. She's always been ambitious, I said neutrally. Emily tilted her head. Ambitious? Yeah, that's one way to put it. The weight in her tone spoke louder than any document. We spent half an hour on office gossip, restructuring, budget shifts, whispered complaints. I didn't dig, I just listened. Eventually, she lowered her voice. Honestly, she murmured, Derek's the one people watch? Naomi's close to him now. She's not the only one. I stayed still, expression blank, though something shifted inside me. He acts like a mentor, she went on, but it's manipulative. He builds people up, then uses them. No one's gone to HR, I asked. Emily scoffed. HR? They're an umbrella in a hurricane. Everyone knows, but unless there's proof in writing, nothing sticks. Her words landed heavier than I expected. Naomi wasn't just having an affair, she was caught in a pattern. And Derek? He wasn't charming, he was calculated. I never said Naomi's name. Silence revealed more than questions. After a pause, Emily added softly, Naomi used to have boundaries. Now, it's like she's sinking with him. Strange, I murmured, watching someone you know turn into someone else. Emily's expression softened. Yeah, it is. Before we left, she handed me her card. If you want to talk more about the office workflow, call me. I thanked her, pocketed the card, and walked 3 blocks out of the way before heading to my car. No sense being seen near her building. Driving home, I wasn't angry anymore. I was ready to stop letting betrayal write the script. Ridabo biao sei. So, they say the loudest part of a dying relationship isn't the arguments. It's the silence. After meeting Emily, the fog lifted. I saw Naomi not as I wished her to be, but as she was. I didn't rage. I didn't storm out. I let the quiet settle like dust in a long-abandoned room. We still shared a house, a bed, a kitchen, the calendar on the fridge, but the rhythm had shifted. She felt it. Naomi started reaching in small ways. Thinking Thai for dinner? That place you like still open? I washed your jeans, folded them too. Domestic breadcrumbs. I answered with faint nods, not hostile, just distant. In the mornings, she'd watch me linger in the mirror, straightening my collar, matching cufflinks. I wasn't dressing for anyone else. I was reclaiming myself. She hated not knowing why. At night, she'd inch closer on the couch, not physically but emotionally. You've been quiet lately, she'd say softly. Rough day? I'd smile without warmth. Just a lot on my mind. It was true. She just didn't know every thought carried her name. The tension didn't explode. It matured. Quiet, deliberate stillness began shifting the balance between us. Naomi had always set the emotional rhythm. Now, she was reacting. One night, she scrolled her phone with exaggerated intensity, waiting for me to ask. I didn't. Finally, she snapped. You've been different. Have I? I asked, looking up from my glass of water. Yeah, she said, like you're not here even when you are. That's interesting, I murmured. She hated that answer. Arms crossed, she demanded, "So this is a mind game now?" "No," I said calmly. "I'm just paying attention." She stared at me like I was a puzzle she didn't remember buying. That night we slept inches apart, but miles away, her back turned, mine unmoving. The next morning she tried again. Soft eggs, fresh coffee, a faint smile. "Got a meeting downtown?" she asked lightly. "Something like that." "Anything I should know?" I kissed her cheek out of habit, not meaning. "Nothing important." And I left, taking the silence with me. Some truths don't come crashing through the front door. They slip in sideways, half-whispered over a drink at sunset. The company's quarterly mixer was held on a rooftop downtown, not extravagant, but polished enough to make mid-level managers feel significant. Naomi mentioned it that morning, almost in passing. "You could swing by after work, smile for the crowd, keep up the dream team look." I smiled. 3. "Do you honestly believe we still resemble that?" I asked her. Silence answered me. I'd timed my arrival 30 minutes after hers, on purpose. I moved through the room with calculated indifference, nodding at acquaintances I barely remembered, avoiding the food tables, my eyes sweeping the crowd until they found her. Naomi. Wearing a powder blue blouse I didn't recognize. Her laugh, too wide, too free. Derek stood next to her, drink in hand, leaning in just close enough to test boundaries with every word he spoke. I didn't approach. I walked past. Emily intercepted me near one of those absurdly tall cocktail tables, more showpiece than utility, perfect for awkward elbows and half-empty glasses. She gave me a knowing nod. "Didn't figure you'd show." "Neither did I replied. "But curiosity's heavier than restraint tonight." Her mouth curved in a half-smile. "You're not here for the bar." "Not even pretending to be," I said. She swirled her wine, lowering her voice, eyes fixed on the patio instead of me. "You weren't wrong," she murmured, "about your gut." I glanced sideways at her. She kept talking. "I shouldn't even say this, but Derek's been bad news for a while. HR keeps dodging it every time it surfaces. And now Naomi's tied herself so close to him people barely say one name without the other." I waited, letting the silence drag her forward. She leaned in slightly. "There was a girl in HR, Sierra. Last year Derek crossed lines with her. Late nights, inappropriate comments. She reported it quietly, but it got buried before anyone important saw it." My grip tightened on the glass, not from shock but confirmation. Suspicion cuts dull, proof slices clean. "And Naomi?" I asked under my breath. Emily lowered her gaze. "She's not innocent, if that's what you're asking. But she's not steering this either. Not really. She thinks she is. That's what makes it dangerous." Her eyes met mine. "Whatever you're about to do, be careful. He doesn't fight clean." Neither do I thought, but didn't say it aloud. "Appreciate the honesty," I said instead. "Maybe I didn't need to tell you," she whispered. "But some of us are done watching decent people burn." Before Naomi could notice us, Emily turned back toward the crowd and disappeared. I stayed long enough to catch Naomi's eyes across the terrace. She gave a small wave, hesitant, suspended in air. I didn't return it, just nodded, unsmiling, and walked out. Driving home, the city lights smeared into ribbons against my windshield. Vindication didn't come, just a colder steadiness, patience hardening into resolve. Naomi mistook quiet for surrender. What she didn't see was that every fragment I gathered was another nail in the coffin she was building herself. It began with a drawer left open. Naomi never left drawers open. Ever. Which is why, when I saw the lingerie drawer ajar, lace spilling over like an afterthought, I knew exactly what it was. A baited hook. She wanted me to bite. I didn't. I walked past, grabbed a shirt, said nothing. That's the thing about people like Naomi. If they can't control the story, they'll torch it just to watch it burn. The explosion came later. She was folding laundry in the living room with brutal precision. Shirts snapped into place, towels slammed flat, breath sharp and audible. I sat nearby, scrolling through my phone, letting the storm burn itself out. Then she struck. Jason, can we stop pretending this is fine? I looked up, voice level. Okay. Her blink carried disbelief. That's it? You asked. Arms crossed, she said. You've changed. You don't even bother hiding it anymore. What? You mean I can't say anything without the freeze out? You don't want truth, I said. You want to fight. They're not the same. Oh, so now I'm starting fights? She shot back. Maybe I'm just reacting to whatever game you've been running for weeks. I set the phone down, deliberate. If you think this is a game, Naomi, you've never met silence before. Her laugh cracked, sharp, hollow. You think you're clever? Mr. Mystery? Coming home late, leaving early, never saying where you go? You think I wouldn't notice? I never called you stupid, I said evenly. But if the dark feels unbearable, maybe ask yourself why it burns. Her jaw tightened. So that's what this is? You think I've been lying? I stood, walking toward the kitchen. Distance steadies everything. You don't need to lie. Your tone says enough. Say it, she demanded. Say what you think I did. I leaned against the counter, glass in hand. I don't think, Naomi, I know. She froze, hands mid-fold, words caught in her throat. Know what? Her voice dropped to a whisper. That I was the fallback. My voice was quiet. Your words, not mine. Color drained from her face. I didn't press. I didn't need to. Silence confesses for you. You went through my stuff? She asked at last, more afraid than angry. I shook my head. I listened. To what? To how you really see me? Naomi straightened, reaching for defiance. So what? Spying now? Recording me like some creep? No, I said. The car. I recorded the car. Doubts, remember? You gave me those. That's illegal. Is it? I almost smiled. You'd know. You quote HR policy better than anyone. Her throat bobbed. This is insane. What's insane, I said, stepping closer, is you standing here for months insisting I'm imagining things while handing pieces of yourself to someone else. I didn't, she began, but the lie strangled itself. You've never needed imagination to lie, I said quietly. You're too good at it. Her mouth opened, then closed. Panic, not anger, flickered in her eyes. I picked up my keys. I'm going for a drive. She didn't follow. Didn't call after me. Didn't move. I opened the door, let the night air pour in like a verdict, and left without looking back. There's a kind of silence that follows action, not peace, something louder. Every hour without a response pounds like a hammer on nerves. I sat at my desk, blinds drawn, cursor blinking like it dared me to stop. I didn't. I'd spent weeks assembling this. Recordings, Emily's whispers, Derek's patterns of coercion, his polished misconduct, all stitched into a clean package. No personal angles, no loose threads. Dates, times, transcripts. A summary so clinical it hurt. Repeated misconduct toward junior staff. Inappropriate advances. Favoritism corroborated. I sent it to the ethics hotline Naomi once bragged about when her firm won that HR Excellence Award. Zero tolerance, she'd said back then. Nothing slips through the cracks. I hit send at 2:13 p.m. on a Tuesday. Wednesday passed, then Thursday, then a week. Silence. No emails, no memos, no whispers. I checked LinkedIn, Derek still in place. Checked the company portal Naomi had shown me, a backdoor view. Still there, still in meetings, still smiling, probably. Each day I came home earlier, not to see her, but to watch her reaction. She didn't falter. If anything, she seemed steadier, as if some unseen tide had shifted in her favor. That unsettled me more than anything. I'd gone to war with precision and now stood on the edge of a battlefield I couldn't read, unsure if my arrow had even struck. Late one night, I sat in my study, staring at the drawer holding the recorder. The knot in my gut throbbed. Had I missed something? Left a trace? Or worse, had everything been erased? I thought of Emily, her warning. Nangu. Her courage never announced itself. It wasn't loud. It wasn't theatrical. It lived in the quiet moments, like when she dared to voice truths others only dared to mutter in secret. Even now, she probably wouldn't realize the weight of what I did with the things she told me. Alan came to mind, measured, unshaken, always with a plan. His mantra echoed in my head, "Keep it clean, Jason. Let them eat themselves alive." But what if they didn't? What if the system simply absorbed every blow and kept moving forward, untouched? From the kitchen, Naomi's hum drifted down the hallway, soft and careless, as she rinsed dishes and loaded them into the dishwasher. Such an ordinary sound, set against the chaos unraveling in my head. That was the moment I recognized it. Not just that I'd handed over evidence, but that I'd given myself something far more dangerous, hope. And hope, when it isn't answered, doesn't quietly disappear, it sours. Then comes doubt, the colder twin of trust, the kind that doesn't accuse outwardly, but turns inward instead, picking at itself until even certainty feels brittle. Was I wrong? Was I late? Was I even the one steering anymore? Or had Naomi quietly taken the wheel back while I wasn't looking? I spent that night sprawled on the couch, awake and motionless, watching car headlights carve shifting shapes across the ceiling, silent clock hands I couldn't stop from moving. Through it all, one thought refused to let go. What if silence isn't waiting? What if silence is the answer? I didn't know that day would fracture everything. I hadn't been tracking the company calendar, hadn't cared enough to mark milestones. I was just enduring the hush, the same heavy hush that lingered ever since I'd sent the file. It stayed like that until Friday. That morning, Naomi mentioned over coffee that there was some retreat happening over the weekend, her tone easy, unbothered. "Derek's flying in late. He's speaking Saturday." I didn't respond, just sipped my coffee, blank. But that evening, when she walked through the door, something small in her expression had shifted. Not fear, not sadness, confusion. I waited. "Derek resigned," she said, still standing in the doorway, her coat hanging loose on her shoulders. "Effective immediately." I glanced up from the book in my lap. "Oh?" She blinked. "They said health reasons, stress, burnout." "That happen a lot?" I asked. "Sometimes," she said, distracted. "I guess." He didn't even say goodbye, just left. She didn't add the part we both felt, but didn't name. He hadn't said goodbye to her. I nodded and went back to my book. Naomi lingered, searching my face. "You don't think that's strange?" "Some people vanish when the pressure's too much," I said evenly. Her gaze sharpened, studying me like she was trying to translate a language she used to understand. I gave her nothing back. My hands were steady, my voice calm, because I already knew. The night before, a text from an unlisted number had arrived. Tip confirmed. Quiet investigation, action taken, no signature, no explanation, no ceremony, just confirmation. It landed without fireworks, no headlines, no public reckoning, just a name scrubbed from the roster, like a clean incision no one would ever see. And that suited me. I didn't want glory. I wanted space. And I wanted her to feel that distance without knowing why. That night, Naomi moved through the house more quietly than usual. Checked her phone too often, stood by the window as though she were waiting for someone to arrive, stared down the hallway toward the closed study door, sensing a shift she couldn't define. Derek was gone, and she didn't know how or why, which made her dangerous, and me sharper. The weekend unfolded like a recalibration. Naomi cooked elaborate dinners, laughed too hard at sitcoms, tossed out casual remarks about missing the way things used to be. I met her with faint, soft smiles. The relief that flickered in her expression said everything. When the ground shifts slowly, people mistake it for wind. They don't realize the floor is collapsing until it's too late. I let her think she had time, let her believe she was still standing. But I already knew the next step, and she wasn't ready for it. The dinner table had always been neutral ground. Not holy, not warm, just functional. 2 glasses of water, napkins folded once, salt dead center. a quiet ritual of routine. That night, Naomi sat across from me, her plate untouched. Salmon, her old favorite. But appetite had left her. Unease sat in its place. "You've been quiet," she said finally. I met her eyes. "I've been listening." Her fork paused midair. "Listening to what?" "To the silence," I said, "and what it covers." Her expression flickered. The fork hit porcelain with a sharp clink. "Jason, if you've got something to say, just say it." I rose from my chair, walked to the hallway cabinet, and retrieved the small black recorder I hadn't touched in weeks. I set it on the table carefully, like a surgeon laying out a scalpel. Naomi's gaze locked on it. "What is that?" I didn't answer. I pressed play. Her voice spilled into the room. "He's the kind of man you end up with when the first one doesn't work out." She froze. Her jaw tightened. Her shoulders went rigid, like a fallback plan that turned out good enough not to question. Her hand darted toward the recorder. I stopped it gently with mine. "Why would you—" she started. "I needed to hear it from you," I said evenly. Turns out I didn't have to. Her face crumpled inward, shock, shame, fury tangling all at once. "Jason, that was private." "No," I said quietly, cutting her off. "It was honest. That's rarer." She shot to her feet, the chair screeching against the floor. "You were spying on me?" I was confirming the truth. Her breath hitched, ready to spin the same old cycle, deflect, blame, reframe. But then she saw it in me. The absence, not anger, not heartbreak, just emptiness. I was already gone. "You could have just asked me," she whispered. "I did," I said, soft but certain. "Every day in the space between our words, and you answered with silence." Tears gathered, unsure of their purpose. "I made mistakes," she murmured. "But we're not beyond fixing." I slid the divorce papers across the table. "Jason, I saw you at the gala," I cut in, laughing with him like I wasn't there. "He told me to stay in my lane. You didn't even blink." Her chair sagged beneath her as she fell back into it. "You don't have to do this." "I already did." The paper sat between us, silent and final. The pen lay on top, waiting for her hand. She didn't move, not yet. She searched me, looking for rage, regret, maybe even love. There was none, only closure. "You always said I was steady," I murmured. "Said it like it was a flaw. I'm proud of it." Her voice broke. "So this is it. The part where we stop pretending." I stood, picked up my keys, paused at the door. "Some betrayals shout," I said. "Yours linger." And I left. No slammed doors, no screaming, just footsteps. Mine leaving behind the woman who taught me how sharp silence can cut. Rain tapped softly against the window, not pounding, just whispering, brushing Seattle's skyline in quiet reflection. Or maybe the reflection was mine. 3 months had passed since Denver. 3 months since the papers were signed. Since Naomi's last message, a clipped apology at 2:17 a.m., I never replied. She didn't beg for forgiveness. She only asked if I hated her. I didn't. Hate carries weight. I felt weightless. No anger, no grief, no thirst for revenge, just distance. Clean, permanent distance. And that was better than forgiving. That was freedom. Now I sat at a corner table in a downtown restaurant. Steel accents, reclaimed wood, low murmur of conversations. My new office was only 2 blocks away. Project manager at a logistics startup, less prestige, more control, a place where no one pretended to be perfect. They carried out their duties without flourish or delay. A waiter set a glass of deep red wine before me. I gave a slight nod, turned the stem between my fingers just enough to watch the liquid spin, then rested it back on the table untouched. The drink wasn't what I came for. What I needed was the pause, the rare silence I'd earned. Halfway through the meal, one of our newer hires approached, Caleb, the fresh graduate who still addressed everyone with stiff politeness and sirs that felt borrowed from another era. He slipped into the seat across from me, breathing heavier than the moment required. "Hate to interrupt," he murmured, the words tumbling over each other. "But I've got to ask, Did you ever work at Mayfield Dynamics? I tilted my head, curious. Briefly? Why? His eyes widened. A soft whistle escaped him as he shook his head. You heard about it, right? Total collapse last month. Their golden boy, Derek something, got nailed with misconduct charges, out of the blue. I'd heard pieces of the story. The fallout had been savage. Derek Rourke, I said flatly. That's him. Caleb leaned in, eager, as if sharing the news might earn him points. They say he stepped down, but come on, everyone knows the board shoved him. HR head's out too. Whole place is in shambles. Can't believe you got out when you did. I raised the glass at last and let a measured sip linger on my tongue. The truth, I said, doesn't always shout. His brows knit together. What's that even mean? A faint smile tugged at me. Not every fire rages loud enough to see. Some burn slow and low until you're choking on the smoke and don't realize it. He nodded, polite but uncomprehending, and excused himself. Alone again, I turned to the window where rain carved crooked trails down the glass. My thoughts drifted to Alan. His counsel was never about mercy, only accuracy. To Emily, whose quiet courage gave me answers no one else would. To Naomi, once loved deeply, now only remembered. Not bitterly remembered, but remembered nonetheless. People expect betrayal to thunder. In truth, it seeps in like mist, subtle, creeping, until you're already lost inside it. And when you finally claw back to solid ground, you stop mistaking silence for safety. You listen differently, trust more slowly, leave sooner, before someone's quiet convinces you you're worth less than you are. I paid the bill, stepped into the downpour, and didn't bother shielding myself from it. Some endings don't arrive with spectacle, only with steady certainty. And for the first time in years, I recognized peace when it came. This is where the story ends. Share your thoughts below, and if this one spoke to you, there are more waiting here. Until we meet again.